Well, hello everyone. Another Tuesday. Crime. Somewhat of a legal update. And I don't know about it being true crime, but this one's really deep. Some of you that have been following me for quite some time will recall that I started with serial killers, old cases, educating and, informing and looking at some of the old ones. Just fascinated by how they were caught, what was done, the start of the BAU and FBI profiling and all that. And I had a great time doing that with a very special person, Jay from True Serial. Some of you know him from the Nevermore Tavern or from Hereticals, where we met. Well, this case reminds me of Jay, and I just wanted to give him a shout out because when it comes to serial killers and looking at the difference between circumstantial and actual concrete evidence, Jay was a master. And I'd love to hear his take on this. So, thank you everyone who's here. Not going to be typing much in the chat, but I see you all and I'm so happy you're here. If I didn't get to type to you yet before the show started, I do see you coming in and I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased that you all want to go over this. Um, we're going to be talking about the Long Island serial killer. Okay. And we're not going to actually condemn anyone right away because there's a lot to this. And if I sound tired, it's because I've been reading a lot. I'm not actually tired. I'm trying to control myself because I don't want you to think I'm too excited about serial killers, but actually, it does pique my interest extremely. And I've been reading for days and days, which is why I did not come out right away when there was an arrest made last week. I'm fully aware, though. Okay. Let's just talk about the elephant in the room. There's the Long Island serial killer. The suspected Long Island serial killer is Rex Heuermann, arrested and indicted last week by the Suffolk County District Attorney, Rodney Tierney. Okay. After a renewed investigation over the last couple of years in a stronger task force put into place by Raymond Harrison, who is the police commissioner of Suffolk County in Long Island. And he comes from New York, actually. He was pretty high up in the New York Police Department prior to that. Now, Raymond Harrison came forward in 2021, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. What I'd first like to do is bring up a couple of screens for you all. Okay. Now I'm going to actually just go over uh, it's a lot. So if I sound down, it's because I'm serious. If I sound a little, I'm trying to be a little more precise, okay? Because this is sensationalism at the max, okay? We're talking long history here, years and years, like 20 years easy, okay? Of bodies that were found along the same area or in Long Island, okay? The ones we're going to concentrate on today are what they call the Gilgo Beach uh, remains. I hate to even say it that way, to tell you the truth. All right. No, not that one. See? Okay. That one. Much better. All right. So, meet Rex Heuermann. Okay. This is professional Rex Heuermann. Okay. And some of you that do a little reading about serial killers, we're always talking about someone we least expect. We least expect. No one would actually think that Rex Heuermann, just from looking at him, could be a serial killer. And currently, he's only indicted. And he says he's innocent. And he has pled not guilty, according to his lawyers, on Friday when he was arraigned. He says he entered a plea of not guilty. All right. So let's just get that out of the way. He's alleged. He's a suspect, the lead suspect. He's been indicted on 3 murders and he is the lead suspect for a fourth. Okay, but let's not mince words here. Looks to be that there are up to 13 bodies. Yes, not all can be linked to him currently. The Gilgo Beach murder victims that we'll be speaking about in the indictment today, and that we're going to concentrate on Rex Heuermann currently, are Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, and Amber Lynn Costello. Maureen Brainerd Barnes is still in investigation. There's still some evidence out being tested. Rex Heuermann is listed as the chief suspect, the main suspect, and was also indicated as such in the indictment for his charges in order for him not to get bail. And he did not get bail. And this was one of the reasons, because they didn't want him interfering with the investigation. Okay, so they have not laid charges for Maureen's demise yet, but they have for Melissa, Megan, and Amberlynn. And you know, I like to concentrate and be respectful of the victims first. And we're going to have to talk about some instances in what they did for a living and things like that. And it's not disparaging, because I have no problem with what any of them did for a living. And I don't think anyone else should too. It does actually, because it is the commonality of the case, that we must bring it up for no other reasons. But first, unfortunately, Rex Heuermann. Let me introduce you to him. He's 59 years old, older than the average serial killer, which the FBI and profiling and all of those that do the research on it say is usually between the age of 25 and 35. However, let's remember that these are old cases, okay? The remains they found were, at least, this is 11 years old in some cases. So he would have been, over 35, but in his 40s, early. He's a large build and presence, which, according to a witness at one time, this is pertinent and why he was a main suspect. He's also a lifelong resident of Massapequa in Long Island. He was born and raised there. He's lived there. He bought his parents' home and continues to live there now. This is all what was put in the original FBI profile way back in 2010. He's married twice. His first wife has been on her own for about 15 or so years. We don't have the actual date of divorce or what happened there. I don't even have her name. I just know she exists and neighbors are talking about her. But his second wife, Asia, he's been with, and he has 2 children. Okay. He's an architect, a professional with his own business. He does consulting for building plans and disputes. He's a reasonable person and a convincing person. And if you have any doubt of that, there is interview clips going around. I'm sure you saw them on Law and Crime and everywhere else about Bonjour Realty in New York, in Manhattan, where his architect business is located, from a year ago, where he speaks calmly, professionally, and quite forcefully. But you can see the size of the man when he goes next to him. Interviews now by the gentleman from Bonjour Realty say how large a presence he was and how he remembers to this day what his handshake was like. So strong, so firm. He has a presence, a very large presence. And the witness described the person that they saw driving a truck away from the crime scene at one time, or at least the body dump scene. We don't know if they were actually killed there. It is very doubtful that they were killed in swampy, marshy lands of Long Island on the side of the road. We doubt that that's what happened, but it does look like the dump site. It is the dump site. It is where all the remains were found. But that witness described the person as being like an ogre. Yep, he's huge. He's huge. Always Createful is reminding me he's like 6'7". We're talking massive hulking. Also with a stare in a presence, in a way of speaking that is commanding. Okay. Some of these things, if you guys have looked into FBI profiling and the BAU, would say that that is very common. Yeah. All right. Let us move on. I don't want to look at his face for too long. Common factors in our victims. Okay. And I'm going to list all four, even though we know Maureen has not been charged yet. Because he is the main suspect in that, we're going to show you why. Because all were in their 20s. All are petite build. All were sex workers, escorts, or paid escorts, and in the sex working business. They all advertised on the internet and had prominent social media profiles, very active in social media and on the internet. They were all found wrapped in burlap, a camouflage top burlap that's used in hunting. Okay. They were all bound at the head, in the torso, the legs, around the chest and the legs with the burlap, all in the same fashion, which led to common factors, which made them link them all together. Because these weren't the only bodies they found, but these were the ones that had such similarities that they could be linked together as by the same person who did it. Rodney Harrison, let me introduce you to the Suffolk County Police Commissioner. He became the Suffolk County Police Commissioner in December of 2021, and you may have heard him speak vehemently about this case. Vehemently. He is aggressive. He is putting it right out there that Rex Heuermann is evil and has caused great harm, and he's very happy that he is arrested. He has worked diligently. When he took over in December of 2021, he assigned a stronger task force. He built it up. He made a more of a focus. He listened to the complaints that were going on. Some of you may be familiar with the Netflix documentary. I believe it was called Lost Girls. And it was all about the missing of Valerie. Shannon Gilbert, actually. Shannon Gilbert in her family, who, because Shannon Gilbert, whose body was also discovered in this area and led to the discovering of these victims, made a 911 call, frantic. She was a sex worker. Her driver dropped her off at the home of a client. And she ran around door to door, knocking and screaming and carrying on, like from what the neighbors have said or the people that were in contact, that someone was after her, following her. She made a 911 call. Now, Rodney Harrison has released that call in its entirety, and we could hear that why they are saying that although Shannon Gilbert had panicked, they are not thinking when they discovered her body months later, because this all happened in May of 2011, and she was discovered many months later. They're thinking that her demise was because she got lost there in the marshes and in the land there and lost her bearings and just didn't find her way out, that it was accidental what happened, even with that 911 call and her frantic knocking on neighborhood doors. The family was quite upset about this. Documentary exists. But Rodney Harrison kept investigating. He kept looking forward. He actually ordered the advanced testing that was done on some of the evidence that was found that led to this indictment. He also went with increased surveillance. Rex Heuermann has been watched for more than a year. He did not become the primary suspect until 2022. But once he did, they've been on him. And I mean on him. Everything. As you will see in the indictment, which, if you read my descriptions, I've already listed for you down below. Every page. Okay. And today we'll go over some of the photographs and stuff. Now, the one that I released is redacted because that is the way that the court, they were releasing it out from the authorities. Okay. There are unredacted versions out there, and I can read from it for you, but I wasn't going to link it. I just didn't feel appropriate about it until I find out why it's out unredacted. The things that they were redacting were personal information about family and stuff like that. And I can understand why they wouldn't want that to be passed around a lot. Okay. Now, there are more players than just Rodney Harrison, who is the police commissioner. He also, this is some of the information to show you that they were really serious. Like, this is what they started putting out right away when they started on that investigation. They tied it into they found the body of a Jessica Taylor, who they have not been able to tie to Rex Heuermann as of yet. However, they are linking for information and started doing mass submission and mass postings in using social media and asking everyone to call in. They really got quite aggressive once bodies with similar MO, similarities too great to ignore were found all within a quarter mile of each other after finding Shannon Gilbert's body. Raymond Tierney is the Suffolk County DA, 4th District. He became the Suffolk County DA in January of 2022, and he's been working closely with law enforcement in Harrison, and he helped gather more than 300 subpoenas in pieces of information to start going in great mass once the investigation zeroed in on Rex Heuermann. He was pushing it forward. He also is on the mass PR tour right now, speaking to the media and giving out details of the case, which is why I'm covering this, because he's out there already saying what they have. So what we'll talk about is only what law enforcement is putting out already. Okay. Now, there's going to be rumors and gossip and questions, and we'll address them and we will talk about them. I'm not going to say we're not going to actually look at things, but I'm not putting anything out there is solid that doesn't come right from them, because you know how I feel about messing with the actual case. Okay. And these victims and their families deserve justice, which means a fair trial with no interference from anyone else. Okay, to skew it in either direction. We need justice to be served for these victims, right? And that's how we're going to do it. We're going to make sure we follow the line. Okay, so we're going to stick with the facts and the indictment for now. And the indictment is the alleged crimes. Okay, the alleged case. It's not in court yet. Okay, it's getting there. We don't even know if everything in the indictment is actually going to be in court. You know the rules, right? In the American justice system, there's going to be motion after motion and filing after filing. We're going to be together for quite some time. So buckle up, buttercups, because I'm not letting this one go. This has everything that I want to see. The legal ramifications, the long history, the multiple unsolved murders. Crime scene mapping of Gilgo Beach death investigations from Ocean Parkway in Babylon, New York. Just to give you an idea, we've got 18 different bodies here. Okay, different remains that were found in different places. Now, granted, 2 of them, there is someone already in jail for 2 of them, proved case done. Okay, these go all the way back to the late 1998, 1996, 97, 98. Okay. But just to show you the area, the reason I wanted to bring this up, and this actually does come from a one of the investigation photos that they put out to show you the area. Do you see how it's all like watery, swampy? It's right up near the ocean. It's weeded and desolate. There's not a lot of homes. The homes are, sporadic in little clusters here and there. It is a pretty desolate area with one major road going all the way through it. And all of these bodies, as you can see, are found off the side of the road. It actually appears that it was a serial killer at work. It does, Mark Caesar, based on at least the cluster of bodies we're talking and remains we're talking and victims we're talking about today. The 4 that we've named are definitely have so many similarities that they are saying, yes, he was a serial killer from at least 2006 to 2010. It is very distinct, always create full. I get it. But remember, by the time they discovered these bodies, okay, and all of the other ones of Jessica Taylor, the Asian male, uh, the Jane Does, both Cherry and Peaches. Two of the bodies are only identified by the tattoos that they garner and are nicknamed Peaches and Cherries. And there is another Jane Doe also. And then there is a toddler that is actually DNA matched to the remains of Peaches, meaning that she died and so did her child. There is an Asian male who also was in the sex worker, supposedly in the sex worker industry, as a cross-dresser and very young, like only in his 20s, so to say, on average. But the bodies are so decomposed, it is hard to actually state. He has not been identified. Many have not been identified. We also have to indicate that with the other bodies, parts of them came up in the water on other beaches in other locations and then were matched to the remains that were found here in what they are calling the dumping site, the dumping area. Okay, this is very is desolate. It's also not really conducive to preservation of any type of evidence. This is watery, almost, I wouldn't say swampy, but briny ocean water, fresh water mixture, cattails, overgrowth, desolate. Okay. Anything being buried out here, had been out here for a long time. There were animals, all kinds of things. And just to say that by the time they found remains, the fact that they have what they have for these victims is, we're grateful, because any longer, and no, because many of the remains that are found have been desecrated, or they've been chopped. Like I said, parts of their bodies have been found in other places and then matched back to here. Oh, hold on. What I want to do now is I want to take a quick look first at the chat to see what your questions are before I get into the evidence that we have in the actual indictment. Now, I have the indictment up, and I do want to just tell you that Rex Heuermann is being charged with 3 counts of first-degree and second-degree murder. Okay, he's got 6 charges against him. He's looking at life and life and life times 3 times 2. Okay, they're serious. He's got no bail because in the indictment, Tierney actually listed that he's the main suspect in an active investigation for another murder, and that he could actually influence that investigation and obstruct it. And it was a good call that he did it that way. Now, there's also, based on statements from Tierney himself, the DA, he said they went forward with these charges based on information that they received, that perhaps more could happen. Now, I don't know if he means more murders or just obstruction of, the case, or destruction of evidence, or if the man was honest. But as we progress, you're going to see that we're dealing with a rather distasteful, if not clever, individual. Okay. All right. Let me just check some of these questions. Okay. And it was him preferred petite victims for yes, he's huge, and he did very petite. All of them were very petite. Yes, all of the victims were Liam. I did find that strange, with such strength that he did. Okay. Tony says sex workers are regarded as easy targets because there is a preconception that the police won't investigate as thoroughly, and there is a chance they won't be reported missing. This was one of the main topics of the documentary and what the family is concerned with in the Shannon Gilbert part of this case. Now, I'm not going to go into, I am going to do sections on all of the other victims. We're going to talk about Valerie. We're going to talk about Shannon Gilbert. We're going to talk about all the others that were discovered. And we're even going to talk about the two charges that were the person who is in jail right now, convicted of two of the bodies that were found in, was actually successfully charged for it, because we could quite possibly be looking at just a convenient dumping area and multiple serial killers or multiple murders that are just one-offs, okay, for whatever reason. Look at, when I showed you that area, could you not see that it was like the perfect area to just do a dump? Nobody's going to see you on the side of the road. You're in and out. Nobody sees you coming and going. There's not a lot of CCTV, not a lot of home cameras. There's no big buildings or businesses that can catch you driving by in your vehicle. There's not even a lot of cell phone towers. We're talking about Long Island here. Way out in the sticks of Long Island at that. Wow. So anyway, that part is enticing. There's so much more, and we're going to cover it all. But today we're going to go over Rex Heuermann and what they're saying he has done. Okay. All right. Yes, Jujubee. I appreciate these investigators didn't leak a word of this. It's impressive. Yes. And yet when you hear their passion when they're out there, you listen to Harrison when he took that mic and he's like, evil. We are going after evil. And also to hear Tierney, District Attorney Tierney out there speaking on it with compassion and absolutely the energy and dedication. Yes, Carrie Ann, the energy and dedication. I am quite impressed. And actually, this is justice the way I like to see it roll. This is our system working the way it should. Yes, Janae, good to see you. Law and Order did do an episode based on this case back in 2012 called Hunting Ground, based on, look at the area, look at here, Yeah, exactly. Hmm. I act like Claire is reporting just the facts for me. My ego check is done for the day. Juju, you and I get along so well about this. Quite often we come, even when I'm on my soapbox, so to speak, about these kinds of things. We are often coming from the same direction. Yes, I do realize I'm doing true crime, but there's a way to do it, okay? And there's a way not to interfere. And I really want to see. I didn't start out wanting to do true crime. It was my obsession with the legal system. I'm not kidding when I tell you I read legal briefs in motions like they're novels. Like I consume them with great aplomb. Like I really like it. I like the twists, and this is why I follow it. But I also had a fascination with cults and serial killers and how the FBI brought the behavioral unit out in what they do behind the scenes. I mean, Criminal Minds was one of my favorite shows, you know, and so was that other one. In what was it? Mind. Mm, Always, you're going to have to help me here, but it was also a 2-season cinema thing about the starting of the BAU and how that was done, and how they were actually interviewing convicts of mass murders and serial murders, just to get an idea on how to do profiling. Mind hunters, that's it, Tony. Thank you so much. Hello, West Side Girl. I'm so happy to see you. For those of you that don't know, West Side Girl Reacts has a reaction channel, and she does reviews and things. And she's a friend of our friend, Mr. Marriott, and they do some great stuff. And he also got her to drink Marriott on screen, actually. So we have that in common, West Side Girl. Well, I'm glad you're here. I hope that you will enjoy it. Yeah. Let's see. Yes, I want Carrie Ann. I do want a clean prosecution, and I hope that the media will only keep it that way. Okay. And as always said, the MO of the suspect on this case and the disposal of the bodies was so distinct. Yes, it was, especially in how it was done and how they were discovered. Jujubee, that is also because what they did do in the investigation is they did clarify that the murders, the time frames, and when they occurred, the dumping of the bodies, all correlate to when the family was away, not even anywhere near Long Island. Okay, so they really didn't have anything to do with it. And I do believe they're probably shocked, as are most serial killer families when they are put forth. Look at the neighbors in the family of Dahmer, okay, or Son of Sam, or any of them. Any of them. Just think of it. They had no idea. Wouldn't it be a shock to commit a murder and then trying to bury the body, you dig up another burial site? Exactly. That's what I'm thinking, because as they're looking, it took them a while, but they found so many, so many. And that is what, although intriguing, is also the saddest part of this. A spree killing rather than a series killings, as there is no sign of escalation. Well, we don't know that yet based on the bodies. Okay. I don't know about a spree killing since it's from 2007 to 2010, the ones that we're looking at currently. And we don't know how many others are going to be linked in. With any luck, we'll get confession and we'll be able to tie as many of them up as possible. But, that's a long way off. And not all serial killers escalate. A certain type of serial killer does, the ones trying to prove a point. But if he was doing this just for his pleasure, as to this is how he keeps control, there are 4 different types of serial killers, and in another episode, we're going to talk about that. Because, like I said, this one hits all the boxes for me, and we've got plenty to go over. But once we go over the 4 different types and the differences, you'll see that they don't all escalate, although it is quite common, Liam, that many of them do. Oh, no. Okay, so I'm seeing. True. True. Not these victims we're talking about, but remember there were 18 bodies discovered. Yes, 10 of them are being linked to one killer called the Long Island serial killer. And currently they are saying that Rex Heuermann could be the Long Island serial killer. However, let's be clear, he's only charged with 3 of those murders, and he's the main suspect in another, based on a commonality of the crimes and the bodies and the DNA and all of this other stuff that was found. Well, we're going to get to it. Okay. But 10 of the 18 bodies are to the Long Island serial killer nickname. Several have been declared, like Shannon Gilbert, to be accidental. And a couple of other, there are 2 that actually another person has been charged with, and they are not related to the ones that Rex Heuermann is being charged with. Sloppy, lazy body disposal is usually what gets an investigation going. This is true, except for they can't really say this was sloppy or lazy. It was just a matter of coincidence that they were in a massive search for someone who did a 911 call from the area, and they were searching for the body there, and it took quite a while to find it. So I don't know if it was sloppy, because it is the perfect dump zone, actually. Yeah. I haven't said it yet, but yeah, just hit those hearts and I won't. Yeah, keep my channel up. And hello, Grace. It's always good to see you here. I am a nerd just like you, Juju. I admit it. I own my nerd. I own my inner nerd. And I know that I'm a little weird. Okay. I'm telling you. I know. Question: is one of the girls he's being charged for had the little sister that was being tormented by the killer? Yes. Yes. and it was documented and traced. So let's talk about the evidence that they have in the indictment, shall we? Let me just pull up some of that. That's a good question, Sean, and I'm glad that you brought it up because I'm going to show you, okay, in the indictment, which I chose not to read to you word for word, even though I read it twice already and working on my third one while working on the presentation. Okay, let me just bring up for you. Beep. Where is it? Here we go. Okay. All right. We've got one of the main things that they brought together in the investigation and is listed in the indictment word for word is how they were able to use these burner phones in the tracking through evidence of from Rex Heuermann's office to victims' phones. Okay. It is indicated in the indictment that he used a burner phone for each victim and that those burner phones, I will show you, they've got evidence that he actually bought them. And there's actually evidence on them, several of them, that tie them to him. Postings to social media and pictures he took of himself. A little sloppy or arrogant. I'm not sure which, but based on what he looks like and what he does for a living, I'd say arrogant and entitled and actually thinks he's smarter than everybody else. All right. So, anyway, we've got for a victim's phone number, which we're not identifying there, we've got I'm going to show you several pictures of how they actually are tying them closely based on the towers to his office locations and his home location, places that he was. Okay. This took a long time. And again, we're looking at evidence that defense is going to be able to go at because we know that this is circumstantial, right? It just appears that it's almost likely that it's definitely him. But do we have him on the phone? Do we have anybody seeing him on the phone? No. Okay. Remember that. The difference between actual evidence, factual evidence and in circumstantial evidence. Now, circumstantial is not factual. It is factual, but it leads to the fact or it infers to the fact, okay, and doesn't actually document that he committed the crime, just the probability that he could. Does that make sense? Okay. And I also linked the lawyer that you know's video down below because he actually just did a video in the difference between circumstantial and direct evidence and how we can tell the difference and how in this indictment how these things play out, because all of this triangulation and the use of the burner phones, that's not direct evidence. It's circumstantial evidence that leads to a direct fact. He did own these burner phones. These burner phones did call the victims. These burner phones were in locations that lead to the fact that he could have committed this crime. Greatly and probably so. Does that make sense? But anyway, I thought it was very interesting and I thought you'd like it too. Anyway, they go into greater detail and it's listed in the indictment that I listed below about all of the different phone calls, how they relate to the victims and how they have triangulated them right to his business, right to where he was at any given time through the burner phones that they could show that he actually owned and purchased himself. Okay. Ongoing calls. Here's this unsettling thing. Not only did he used these phones to call the victims and make the arrangements. Of course, they're sex workers, so he's contracting with them. This is how it is laid out that he actually lured them to be in his proximity so that the crime could be committed. Okay? That because of the work that they do, they were in a more vulnerable situation to just meet him wherever. I'll just code you a couple more. The other thing that they have on him is this absolutely bizarre or actually horrendous internet searches. Okay. Recently in the investigation, they actually pulled up So many U-Hauls worth of evidence out of his house. And of course, his computers and everything from work and from home have been looked at. His internet searches are, well, let's just say quite telling. Most of them are like things like Mistress Long Island. He was actually looking for evidence like on the cases themselves after the murders. Okay, some of the things he looked for were pornographic, including child pornography, but most of them were torture related, and I'm not going to go over all of them, but they were wide and not specific. They did use slurs like Asian and chubby and black, or girl with face beat up, preteen girl with makeup, nude slave girls, torture, redhead porn. What? Yeah, not giving me good feels here at all. Oh, anyway, tied up, tortured, abused, even looked for mature escorts of Manhattan, girls begging for it. These are the searches. Like, I kid you not, exactly how he typed it in. Crying girl. Okay. But more than that, he actually went into all of the disappearances of Maureen and Melissa, Megan, and Amber. Why would law enforcement not trace the calls made by the Long Island serial killer? Unsolved serial killer cases. 11 currently active serial killers. Searched their names. Cops launched Gilgo Beach Homicide Investigation Task Force. The Gilgo Beach Killer. Criminal Minds. FBI active serial killers. Serial killers by state 2023. This is Rex Heuermann's search records. He's either really, really full of himself or absolutely obsessed. But then again, I could have the same searches here, many of them, in regards to the names and things like that. But then again, I don't have the triangulated burner calls either, so I can't be a suspect here. I wasn't there. Internet searches don't give you a lot, but they do let you know what he was thinking about and let you a little peek into his mind, which is disturbing, to say the least. And that's just my opinion. That's not in the indictment. Okay. I'm saying these searches are disturbing for me, especially the types against the victims, against the types of victims, of who he was looking for and how he was looking for them. Okay, he also searched and viewed for articles concerning the very task force that was investigating him. He was obsessed. Okay, and they found all this in his records. All right. Well, his internet searches are going to be used against him. Now, we'll have to see what the defense says about that. It was a big case, it was sensationalized. And so, playing devil's advocate, I throw out to you in the chat and to you listening on YouTube, wouldn't we all be searching some of that? Not so much the disparaging stuff, the child pornography and the abuses against the women, but the searches in regards to the case, the women's names, looking for all of that. Does that really indicate that he's a serial killer, or just like us, interested in a very big case that's unfolding, a large amount of bodies? The interest of a serial killer, aren't we all kind of intrigued? There's a whole bunch of us out there that could have done those searches, to be honest. Okay, let's just be real about that. Defense will probably bring that forward front and center, and we'll use channels like this to prove it. But what he can't really sweep under the rug, so to speak, is the DNA evidence. Okay, several hairs were found on the remains. They were matched to the suspect and matched to the wife by new technology. They matched through garbage that was thrown out, uh, matched to the suspect from the pizza crust that he ate for lunch recently. Yep, That's how they matched one of his hairs that was found on the body. But, there are also several hairs from his wife that were found on the burlap. Now, they have cleared the wife of wrongdoing currently of committing the crimes because they actually think this could be transfer. Or the murders could have taken place in his home or his vehicle where his wife is regularly and hairs could exist. But either way, because it's his wife's hair, it ties him directly to Rex Heuermann in his ability to put that transfer onto those bodies. And he can't deny that the hair that they found is his because they've matched it to his own DNA. Now, here I'd like to talk about the dedication of the task force because new technology became available. So they started retesting the evidence. And that is the only way they got this DNA evidence on him because of new technology. In the beginning, when they found this, they couldn't do any kind of match. They didn't have the capability. Okay, because of the condition of the evidence and because of the way technology was then. But since then, and this task force pushing forward using every means they could to try to get some of these cases resolved. I have to give them great credit because it was expensive and you had to be diligent and you really had to you had to have some tenacity to just keep at it because look how old this is. Look at how many dead ends. Look at the least amount of evidence that they had, okay? But I'll tell you, they did. They've got all in common the camouflage burlap used commonly in hunting, okay? They all have now, quite a few of them have these hairs that they've matched. There's no defense is going to have a little bit of trouble with this. But I know you guys, I know you already know they're going to go over the investigation. They're going to go over how it was done. Let's get back to those burner phones, okay? In the indictment, we're going to see evidence of him purchasing the burner phones. You can't get better than an actual picture of him doing it. Video of him doing the transactions. Yup, that's him. Video evidence. Well, they're going to have to actually go and try to say that it's not him. But they can prove that he was there at that time based on other things. They've got other evidence that says he was in that general area, and that is more than likely him, and that was what he was wearing. Okay. They also have evidence from the burner phones of him taking selfies, and they were on the burner phones. And so, like, if you're taking a selfie on the burner phone, that at least means that at that time you had that phone in your hand. They're going, possession. What? 9/10 of the law. You're the owner of that phone. That phone is calling the victim. That victim goes missing. That victim ends up in a burlap wrap or in Gilgo Beach. And you are now indicted. Rex Heuermann. Yeah. Amazing, right? Gilgo Beach. Well, that's it for the evidence part of it. Okay. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to put, if you don't mind, what I'd like to do, I'll remove it for right now. But when I do bring it back up, I'm only going to bring up what you want to talk about. And then I will bring up the victims again because that is what I really want to focus on, them getting their justice. Okay. And that is what I wanted to say about Sean saying on the burner phones. They also have documented that one of those burner phones, the one used, I believe it was for Melissa. Let me just double check my notes here. The burner phone that was used for Melissa was used to call one of Melissa's relatives. And I believe it was her sister. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But it was her sister. And he actually gloated about the killing and about assaulting her prior to it. Actually called them. Okay. Here's the other thing he did with the internet searches in the burner phones. He kept track of the families, the relatives, watched their reactions to the case, stalked them somewhat. Yeah, he was obsessed. He's watching how people are reacting to what he's done. He wanted the younger sister to know that he had done this, thinking the burner phone, I guess, was going to protect him. Kind of naive, don't you think? Hmm? But then again, he's an architect. He's not in law enforcement. And, well, he did not seem to be a likely suspect at the time. Really crazy. That fascinates me. Like, what I want to do something with one of my friends who are into psychology to find out what would possess him to actually contact the victim's family that way. Seems kind of torturous, kind of sadistic, you know? Like, not only the way the bodies were treated, but then to go after the families, to obsessively keep looking for every detail about the case, not just to protect yourself, because really, look at the evidence that they have. To me, it does not seem like Rex Heuermann did very much to protect himself from being found. Yep, I'm telling you, we're going to get into more and more about this. We're going to cover as many different angles of it as we can, just to try to understand, because that's what I want to do. I want to understand. Yes. Thank you for the ordering, Ricker. One of the docs that you watched, you figured it was some kind of getting their kicks. Yes, but now they have actually traced it back to one of the burner phones, which makes it him. Yep, burner phones look at the trees. That is going to be the key here. The key here. And could you guys, I don't know. What's with burner phones, okay, that are actually traceable, okay? Burner phones, I thought, like, you don't have ownership of them. They don't have a service, right? You just pay money, you put them in for your minutes or whatever, and you're not really registered in any way. However, for some reason, like, everybody kind of knows he's the one that bought these in the same location, like, all the time, and he bought one for every victim. Um, to be specific, I guess. And don't forget, they weren't done in such a cluster that it was weeks or months. We're talking year or more between, okay? Each person going missing and each person being then found demised. Okay. They have video of Megan at a hotel leaving the last time she was seen to meet a client and then never seen again. Okay. We know from the interviews that the investigation is done to family and friends and even to clients. When was the last date each victim was seen? Okay, and we can see from the indictment that the investigation led to the fact that his family, Rex Heuermann's family, was out of the state at that time, leaving him free, unattained and unwatched to commit the crimes. We have all the calls traced on the burner falls right to the area of his office. The call to the sister was made right from his office, they said. That was reporting I saw. I have to find out if that's in the indictment word for word. I didn't see it word for word, that it was from an office phone, but from the office location, which means it could have been the burner phone. Okay. Like I said, I want to be very careful not to put anything out there that has not been absolutely I's dotted and T's crossed. Juju says, I am skeptical of cell phone data. Jin is good at that, isn't he? We need him here. Yes, Jin is on like a mini thing with family. But yes, we miss him and he is very good at that. But we also, don't we all have some experience on how that plays out in court and how it can be dismantled or not? Okay. I think triangulating it to his office in a place like Manhattan is pretty easy based on where the cell phone towers are. Okay. And in the proximity that anybody that is his site with motive well, we don't know about the motive, but with opportunity. Okay. And with actually the other things in play, like the DNA, I'd say it might it might be pretty important, especially since they can document him buying those burner phones. And to what purpose would he be calling the victims? Because isn't it kind of like a big stretch to think that he just happened to be a client of all of those particular sex workers that ended up dead? He's just got wanton desires, right? It's just kind of a coincidence that he's on all their phones. Hmm? Or that he needed a burner phone to contact them each. Now, if let's grant it he was a person with a particular appetite that needed to be satisfied, would not one burner phone be sufficient to call your sex worker buddies? Would you need one for each one? Hmm. These are the things I hope prosecution brings up, and that I hope the defense is going to have a hard time going against, because that's where I'd go with the juju. I am skeptical of cell phone data too, but sometimes circumstantial evidence links and paints a big picture. We saw that in the murder trial. The Murdaugh murder trial had no weapon. No weapon. We couldn't actually put his hands on a weapon. We had no DNA. We got guilty conviction because the circumstantial evidence led to the fact no one else could have done it. He had the means, the opportunity, and a way to do it. And actually, the missing of all of that extra evidence actually led to his demise, because he was the one who had the opportunity to get rid of it. It looks like he did on purpose, and if he didn't do it, why would he need to? I was always fascinated by that part of the case. Yep. Pizza crust DNA linked him to the burlap. Yes, it did, because his hair was found at the bottom of the burlap. The pizza crust DNA matched that hair. His hair is also matched. Okay, not just the wife's. Okay. Look at the tree, says grandiose narcissist. Pretty much. If he's thinking he can get away with it. Okay, well, let's hope, if that's the case, that confessions will come out and he'll start bragging, and there will be justice and some closure for many of the families involved, to the other victims that have not been properly identified, nor is there enough evidence to charge anyone for. I'm hoping that will get the best of him. All right. Not a lot of cell phone towers in that area. Exactly. It's Manhattan. Yeah. Oh, you mean in Long Island? You're right. On that strip of land, not a lot of cell phone towers, which is why they know exactly where Shannon Gilbert pretty much was, but lost her signal as she was running around trying to find help. Okay. Yep. Ginny's on holiday. This is true. How old are the burner phones? I will have to get you that information. I do not recall off the top of my head, but he purchased them prior to each murder for each victim. They seem to be hauling out a lot of evidence from the residents. Yes, they are. We're talking about multiple U-Hauls were used, okay? And let's talk about also Rex Heuermann, okay? Here's something really odd. He had 93 registered firearms, and yet they found over 200 weapons, it's reported, in when they pulled out from the home and work. 200 weapons. Now, that has to all be documented again, but 93 registered to him in his name. I haven't seen anything about the age of the burner phones, but I do know they were purchased before each person went missing. They were purchased in time for him to make contact with them prior to them being missing, to set up appointments. Mark says, rule number 1, if you are going to commit a crime, don't have a phone on you and don't involve your phone in any way. True. I mean, that's what we're learning in the cases we've been following lately. Yes, Mark? Garris, it is very disgusting. It's a horrible, horrible case in regards to what was done to the young women, in the fact that there are so many unidentified, so many left unsolved in that area. But the fact that we may be dealing with more than one person and more than one serial killer in general, or are we just looking at a convenient dumping site for the nastier people in our world? Just a place for them to dump them on the East Coast. I don't know. You know, it's very horrific to read the details on it. On that, I wanted to show you there are two. I've linked these, but these are actual links I really want you guys to check out in regards to the victims. Number one, there is a the Long Island Serial Killer podcast will list the 10 victims that are loosely associated as one serial killer. And I say loosely because remember, law enforcement has not linked any of them together except for the top four, which are Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Megan Waterman, Melissa Bartholomew, Bartholomew, and Amberlynn Costello. Okay, and on that, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. I'm going to remove that and go on to the second part of this for you, which, like I said, I wanted to give some focus onto the victims here. Hopefully, you can see this. Okay. The link for the podcast one is the one that I'm looking at right now. Okay. And I'm going to get to the other one that I linked afterwards for the other 15 minutes of the show. Like I said, this isn't all we're going to do on this. We will be coming back to this repeatedly to go in more details into the type of serial killers, how this particular case may relate to a certain type, and things we can look for as we progress towards trial. Okay, because currently he's indicted and he pled not guilty on Friday. And now we do have a hearing coming up August 1st. He's no bail, he's sitting in jail. And we have a hearing coming up on August 1st, not too far away, where we'll get more particulars on whether or not he's going to be waiving his right to a speedy trial or what motions are going to be put forward. And don't forget, he still can actually motion for it to be dismissed for lack of evidence or whatever they like. His lawyers are busy, I'm sure. I'm sure. All right. So here, they go into detail in regards to when everyone went missing. They all were sex workers, how they advertised and everything. And actually when they went missing. Okay, both Melissa and Amber, Megan and Maureen, all their remains were found in December of 2010. Okay. And those are the three that Rex Heuermann has been indicted for, and the one, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, who is the chief suspect, the main suspect currently, and was mentioned in the indictment also to prevent him from getting bail. The other victims that are linked to what they call the Long Island serial killer. Okay. Now, is Rex Heuermann just guilty of these or all of them? We don't know. And I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying he's the only Long Island serial killer either. I'm just saying that from the start, there are 10 victims that they've linked to what they call the Long Island serial killer. Okay. Jessica Taylor, who was also in her 20s, okay, from Washington, went missing in New York City around July 2003. Her remains were first recovered in July 26th in Manorville, New York, and then matched to what they found left in Gilgo Beach in April of 2011. After they found the other bodies, continued searching of the area brought forth more remains. Now, Jessica Taylor, part of her came up on a beach in Manorville. Okay. Valerie Mack, also in her 20s. Oh, she's from Port Republic, New Jersey. She was last seen in the spring of 2000. She's known as Jane Doe 6, but was identified. Her partial remains were first discovered again in Manorville, washed up in November of 2000, and later matched to more larger remains in April 2011 in the Gilgo Beach area. She was identified using genetic genealogy in May of 2020, more advanced technology. Like I said, the task force has been working diligently and they were continuing to look at this, although there's very little that they were able to move forward. At least Valerie Mack is now identified. Jane Doe number 7, however, has not. Her remains, she's the first island Jane Doe, the one that was recovered near Toby Beach in April of 2011. These remains were linked by DNA testing to a set of remains found on Fire Island in April of 1996. The victim had a surgical scar on her left leg, which is the only identifying factor at this point. Still unidentified. John Doe, actually, was discovered in the Gilgo Beach in April 2011 also. He's an Asian male who died from blunt force trauma to the face, according to investigation. He likely worked as an escort and was found wearing women's clothing. He's between the age of 17 and 23, about 5'6" in height, and missing 4 of his teeth. He had been dead between 5 and 10 years when his body was discovered. Jane Doe number 3, Peaches, identified only by the tattoo. On June 28th of 1997, this dismembered torso, a young African-American female, was found in Lakeville, New York. Investigators reported the victim had a tattoo of a peach on her left breast. But in April 2011, investigators discovered more of her remains inside a plastic bag near Jones Beach State Park, and they nicknamed her Jane Doe number 3. DNA analysis later identified the victim as the mother of another remains for Baby Doe. Baby Doe, the skeletal remains of Baby Doe, a female toddler between the ages of 16 and 24 months, was discovered in Gilgo Beach in April 2011 during that mass excavation of graves. She was wrapped in a blanket and showed no visible signs of trauma. DNA tests revealed that the child's mother was Jane Doe 3, otherwise known as Peaches, whose body was recovered 10 miles east near Jones Beach State Park. The toddler was reported to be a person of color and was wearing gold earrings and a gold necklace. Now, here are the other ones possibly connected. Okay, we've got Shannon Gilbert, who was in the area when she went missing, made the 911 call, said someone was chasing her, was dropped there to perform service at a client's house from her driver. Okay, her remains were discovered off Ocean Parkway in December of 2010. Many credit the search for Shannon with leading to the discovery of the Gilgo 4, John Doe and Baby Doe, and the partial remains of Valerie Mack, Jessica Taylor, and Jane Doe number 3. Had they not been searching for Shannon Gilbert because of that 911 call, they would not have discovered this massive graveyard of victims. Natasha Dugal, 31, was last seen on March 16th of 2013, leaving her home in Queens Village, New York. The next day, Dugal's vehicle was found abandoned along the Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach, along with her wallet, ID, and some clothing. Her body was discovered washed ashore on Gilgo Beach on June 24th of 2013. March 3rd, 2017, the dismembered torso of a Hispanic, light-skinned African-American woman was found inside a suitcase in Westchester County. She had a tattoo of 2 red cherries on a green stem located on her right breast and earned her the nickname Cherries by the investigators. She's referred to that by law enforcement. She was decapitated and dismembered, although her original cause of death was a stab wound to the torso. June 27th of 2008, Tanya Rush, the remains of a 39-year-old Brooklyn mother of 3 who worked as an escort, was discovered dismembered inside a suitcase on the shoulder of an entrance ramp on the Southern State Parkway, right near Gilgo Beach. As you can see, there are similarities. They're all in the area. They all are supposed to be working as escorts in the sex worker industry. They're all young, some a little older, like the mother 39, and the other, and one a gentleman, although still working in the industry. Well, the reason that I bring it up is the similarities are there. Well, this is why they think there may be more than one person involved. We don't know if they're all going to link to Rex Heuermann. And so that's why the reporting saying he is the actual Long Island serial killer cannot be a definite, at least not to me. I don't know about you guys, but definitely not to me. Okay. I can't go that far. I can say that the three that they've indicted him on, there's enough there to say that, well, for several years, he killed people. He's a serial killer. Was he in Long Island? Yes. He is a Long Island serial killer. Is he the Long Island serial killer that everyone has speculated about for years and done documentaries and books on? I don't know. Do you? I don't. I don't. But we could find out. We have to find out while we hear from Rex Heuermann, while we hear from law enforcement on what they have on the rest of the cases, the rest of the remains that were uncovered. Okay, the rest of the victims. There are many. Mhm. The next thing I'd like to bring up that I think is very interesting, and I can't take credit for these, but I want to give credit to the person who did this. Okay. They put together, and that was the other link that I put down there, the mapping of the Long Island murder victims. In as we go through it, you'll see that they actually pick it up with there was an arrest, Rex Heuermann, okay, all right, but there's also a Long Island serial killer from 2010s in the early 90s. Joel Rifkin lived in Hempstead area and killed at least 9 people in the Long area, but up to 17 people in 1989 through 1993. And Robert Schulman killed at least 5 people from 1991 to 1996, all while living in the Hicksville area, which is quite close. There's another person guilty of 2 murders in the early 90s, John Bicktroff, and we're going to cover that later because 2 of the bodies found during there were assigned to him. Okay, he is a suspect in a third. There are 10 more murder victims that we just went over, and one highly debated death, which is Shannon Gilbert, without answers. Shannon Gilbert's family still claims to this day that she is a victim of the Long Island serial killer and wants further investigation. Why they are saying her death was accidental or something that happened after that 911 call, we don't know. Well, we're going to have to look into that a little bit more, and it has piqued my interest greatly. So we will be diving into that. Well, as you cover the area, the way that they did this is it pops up that the story of this Long Island area where all these bodies were found starts in November of 1993. A woman had been seen hitchhiking in Patchcook, New York, and her name was Rita Tangredi. She's one of the solved cases, by the way. Rita's remains were found in a wooded area on November 2nd. Okay, well, the reason I'm going there was also Sandra Casella. She was found in that wooded area by a group of hunters, and she had been strangled. But reports don't state that the same level of violence was present as was done to Rita. Colleen McNamee was last seen on January 5th of 1994. She was getting into a small blue car at a diner, and her remains were found in 1994. Similar to Rita Tangredi, she was found in the woods. She too was beaten, strangled, and left in the same pose. That is why Rifkin is actually the suspect in those, and actually has been charged with 2 of them. The partial remains of Jane Doe, who is listed as one of the 10 for the remaining Long Island serial killer cases, was partial remains were found as early as 1996. But this will actually map out to you where. Do you see how they're putting all the dots together as they come up? I'm not going to go over all of them, but you have the link. Let me link it again for you. And it is in the description for those of you following later. Okay. um it is quite interesting the way they map it out, because it gives you the visual of the area and how the bodies are being found, and the similarities, and why people started to link everything together. Let me go back. Someone asked how old Rita was. Hold on. It's a good question. I do not know. She does not look to be any older, her late 20s, early 30s. They're not giving me an exact age on her, but I can find that out for you, and I will. Okay. How old is Rex? He's 59 years old currently. Would place him in his early 30s, early 40s, when the murders he's accused of were committed. Okay. So anyway, when you've got time, check that out. Okay. I found it quite helpful in actually lining out why all of these cases are kind of being lumped together, but not. Basically, the main reason they're all being put together as the Long Island serial killer is because of where the remains are found, in that general location, in that dump site, graveyard. Okay. Yeah. Rita was 31. Thank you, Jujubee. Thank you. Thank you very much. I knew somebody could find it. A brief search, I did not, and I didn't want to Google forever. Yep. Oh, God. Basically, Carrie Ann, you're right. Small frame. He did like small, petite frames. Everyone was of small build of the bodies. Yes. Like the Asian man, he was not very large. He wasn't a large person. Okay. If it's him, I wonder if he has other dumping grounds and perhaps different victims. If it is him, I wonder the same thing. Look at the trees, because these are from 2010. It's 2023. I can't imagine someone with a taste for this type of violence, in actually being that involved in researching everything, would not have been committed more crimes afterwards, unless he got spooked that they were onto him. And then I don't understand why he's still in the same area. I don't. But that is something that I am very curious about. Want to look into more. Yeah, rocket couch, I hear you. Nothing like that term to bring you jarringly back into the conversation. Exactly. It kind of took my breath away. Yep. Yep. Gary Ridgway did dump in clusters. Very good look. Oh, you like looking at serial killers too? Look at the trees. We should talk. I can see you. You know your serial killers, or at least some of them. Uh, I'm with you on this one. Always createful. Please don't look at my search history. If they saw it today and yesterday and the day before, it would be quite telling, or on most days. Yeah. We claim we are in true crime and then one of us gets arrested. Let's hope not. Let's just hope not. Okay. Tony Regime. Rule number 1, never have a phone. If you have a phone, then leaving it at home with no activity then there is normally active shows a deviation from normal behavior. True. Let somebody use it, because that's what happened with Murdaugh trial. He actually left it in the kitchen unused when everybody paraded through that courtroom and gave testimony that that man was never without his phone, and he was always on his phone at dinner, in conversations, no matter what was going on. Yeah. That kind of didn't serve him well, did it, Tony? No. You know what, Rocket? It does, because Long Island it's north of me, but it's not that far. It is the East Coast, and it's close enough. It's close enough that we can get there in an hour or so. it's close enough that it's rumored. It's always rumored that if here in New Jersey, that if the mob does you, they either go south to the Pine Barrens or they take the drive to Long Island. You know, yeah. But it's like a rumor. It's just a saying that they say. Unfortunately, a little truth to it. Yeah, I would say now that they've uncovered it in 2011 when they did all the bodies, I would say people aren't dumping there right now, Janae. You're right. It's closed for business, so to speak, because it's been discovered. But the area is ripe with places like that all along that long stretch of road on both sides with the beach and then the salty, briny, marshy type areas. Pizza and smokes, that'll get you. That's the biggest ones for DNA, right, Jojobi? That'll be, yep. And yes, Rocket Couch, pizza's getting everyone caught these days. It's amazing. It is. The burlap was very specific, I agree always, and that's going to be something that actually nails them down. Yep. So Rocket Couch has a good perspective here. With his extensive psychology training at Criminal Minds U, I hear you, dude. We watch too much TV, don't we? I'd guess he wants to relive the trauma he caused on the families. Yes, he gets some kind of kick out of it. This control thing, it does lead to a bit of control to me. His dominance of the situation, his cleverness, thinking he's smarter than everybody else in the room. All standard. mm, yeah, all standard kind of serial killer traits, so to speak. But we'll get into all of that. We'll get into all. I did do a lovely series with Jay again from True Serial when we talked about the starting of the BAU and how the FBI looks at that and the different types of serial killers and what are their common traits. Okay. Carrie Ann says, continued dominance over the victim through their loved ones. Yes, it is. It's like trying to relive the satisfaction that he had, to continue it, to drag it on. Right. Yep. He used his middle name. Yep. Insane. He kept the phones as trophies. I'm not sure, but he definitely got identified as having them. I'm not sure, Jujubee. Let's read the indictment to see how they actually did that. They say they have evidence of him purchasing, they have him on video, and they have the receipts. So I'm not sure. Even if he did do it with cash, because they have him on video buying them, I doubt it's going to get dismissed as evidence. And a good piece of advice for all of us internet searchers: incognito mode deletes cookies automatically when closed. No need for another browser just for that. But I can assure you that even though you delete your browser history, there is a place on the computer that the FBI can get to that it's stored. At least that's what happens on Criminal Minds, right, Rocket Couch? Hey, Shill. Good to see you. In the UK, Liam says they can buy SIM cards that are preloaded with credit at the checkout of the supermarket. We can do that here in America too. And then we just load the number of the card in and it gives us minutes. Okay. But I think the actual purchasing of the burner phone itself is what gets documented by how you pay and whether you're on camera doing it. Mark Caesar, was he stupid enough to not realize that registering them with his own details, be it the name of bank account, that would link him to the phones? I'm not sure that he could have paid cash. All I know for sure, looking at the indictment, is they have him on video buying those phones. It doesn't, okay, and that they say they can prove the receipt. I wouldn't be surprised if nieces and friends and daughters had creepy run-ins with him at barbecues and holidays. Perhaps. We will probably hear a lot, based on what the media's done in other cases. We'll probably hear on nauseum all the little details. We'll probably know what he said in kindergarten, like every other day. what kind of clothes he wore in high school, and who his first girlfriend, whether he kissed well. Yeah. Am I being sarcastic and a little bit snarky? The hell yeah, I am. It's ridiculous out there lately. And please, people, don't feed into it. You're not going to get that here. How would they know it was bought by me if a nondescript package isn't registered on payment? Because they have a picture of you buying it, and the phone is registered by a unique identification number. Let's hope there's victim DNA on the phone. Do we need victim DNA when we have him calling their numbers and conversing with them right before they went missing? I don't think we need DNA to prove he had contact with them that way, or he intended at least to have contact with them. He set up the date. They were paid workers, and he was paying them for their service. He set up the meet with the burner phone. Yes, there are lot numbers on burner phones, and I learned that from watching The Wire, which was an awesome series on the investigation of a drug ring. And it was so involved, and I learned a lot about investigative techniques and how you can cross lines and not cross lines. But yes, everyone has its own unique number, and batches of them are linked together. They would know that you bought a SIM, but not which SIM. No, but the burner phone is identifiable. Exactly, Jujubee. Everyone in line would have had to buy a burner phone from the same lot, okay, around the same time. And it's still, even if that happened, Jujubee, he's still in that line buying a burner phone that was used to contact the victim. It's not going to help. Yep. You have to buy a whole phone. You're more likely to hold on to it. I can buy 10 SIMs and throw them away after each use. I get it. Mhm. Exactly. Yep. Okay, here we go. The phones is definitely going to be a big part of this case, especially, I mean, look at how you guys are going on. Like, it's intriguing. I am not sure what they use to sample the DNA survey. Basically, if it depends on if you're talking about these three that were found in 2011, or one of their bodies was only missing for a year, the other was like 2 or 3. They were not there as long as some of the other bodies and remains, so there was things that they could test. That's a good technical question, and I can look up the normal parameters, but it will not say exactly what they did. We can only look up what is usually done. Okay. It's going to be the trial when they go over the investigation and how everything was done, when we're going to get those actual nitty gritty details. And we will, because one of the things that the defense is definitely going to do is start attacking all the evidence, how it was tested, who tested it, what kind of technology they used, why they took so long, whether they sneezed, and if they like peanut butter and jelly for lunch. Like, you could definitely guarantee all of that's going to come up. Okay. If you're regarding Shannon Gilbert, I'm sure he does. He left her there, but he was supposed to, and he was supposed, and then he had something to do. And yet she went missing, and she wasn't found until months later in that land, in that marshland, in that graveyard. I'm sure there was a lot of DNA sources on such young remains. Going inside bones is usually needed for much older. Yes. Did he cry when he got caught? I'm not sure. I did see a picture of him being arrested, and he looked rather stoic as he walked out of the building. I don't know. That is curious. Or he was just being adventuresome. His searches are quite weird. And maybe he got a notion. Who knows? It's I do not know. He could have. He could have thought it was a woman when he picked him up. But remember, most of them were called from the other three. We know that he made a dates with them through their advertisements ahead of time. Is there a the? I'm not sure. I think there's more than one. We already have someone in jail for several murders that happened consecutively within a period of time, all in the same manner, all with the same type of injuries, in the same manner of murder, and actually posing the bodies. That man's in jail, and I'm going to cover that one separately. They were from earlier cases. If you follow the link, it will give you more information. But Rita is one of them, and Colleen is another. It could be the related of a few people, including him. Yes, there is no doubt that there are great similarities. Let's start there with just a little bit of this conversation for the next couple of minutes. Do you all see the similarities in the victims and in how they found those bodies as to why the indictment on Rex Heuermann is focusing on those three? They are all supposedly done the same manner. They were all contacted in the same manner. They are all contacted with the burner phones. They've had contact, suspected contact with Rex Heuermann, proved through the indictment, through the burner phones, and etc. There is actually DNA evidence linking him to those three bodies, and perhaps to the fourth, Maureen. Well, he's not been indicted yet, but he is indicated as the primary suspect in that murder. Okay. But I can see why they're tying these together. But there are similarities in several of the others. Many of the other un either unidentified and or identified but not resolved murders were sex workers. Were also in their 20s. Were all just vanished while meeting a client. Okay. Um, it's kind of hard to tell based on where everything was found and where the bodies. We just know that when Shannon Gilbert went missing, a massive search took place in the area because we knew where she was and discovered all these bodies. All these bodies. And it led to more than one arrest and multiple investigations. Trying to link them all together would be impossible. I do think it's more likely that more than one, based on the fact that someone else has already been convicted for several of them, and the fact that only a few of them are being linked to Rex Harriman now. I would say that more than one killer is involved, in that we're just looking at a dump area. I mean, look at what happened when they drained a couple of lakes and they've been finding multiple bodies. That doesn't mean that the same person put the bodies in the lake. It could just as easily mean that the lake was a convenient dumping site. Uh, yeah, well, there's only one major road through there, and you can see it, the big main. That is the main highway through there. Most of the other roads are small little roads that lead to just vacation homes and small little clusters of homes. Okay, no big neighborhoods, no big cities. Okay, like that stretch of area that they're talking about is pretty desolate. I hope for the families of the victims' sake they got the right man and they get some sort of justice from this. For these, I do. And based on what we're reading so far, I think they had good cause to indict, and we'll have to see what happens with the trial. Justice doesn't seem satisfying, though, and that is sad. True, but in the case of Shannon Gilbert, where they feel that justice isn't being served because they're calling her death accidental, even though she cried out for help prior, you can understand the family wanting the investigation to continue. Hey, Wrecker, I dub Claire the grizzly bear serial killer. No, 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 no. Don't put that out there, dude. Yes, I agree. Rule number one about crimes: don't commit them. That would be words to live by, Mark. I kind of agree with you. It's kind of obvious. It's a shame we have to say it, but based on what we see every day, I guess, some people just don't have common sense. Okay. Mm, yeah. The Innocent Project, yes, because every day people are being caught for something they didn't do. I get it. And that's why the Innocence Project is a big thing. Yeah. Mark, Dexter, what a serial killer was here. Destroy my burner phones in the microwave. Exactly. Oh my God. Yeah, I heard that rumor, Jujubee, about they was trying to go against the Innocence Project and say that they were actually freeing guilty people. It's not that easy for them to take it on. They're dedicated. They spend lots of money. They don't get anything for it. Okay? Why would they do that for a guilty person? No, they're trying to serve justice. I kind of admire that project. They have a great sense of law in of right and wrong. YouTube. Yes, Liam is teaching us all, not just me, on how to get along the cell phone issue, but I'm not going to need it because I'm not going to do anything. Okay? All right. Oh gosh, there's so much here. All right. We all use our phones so much, right? I do too, Juju. I've got a phone I've had for several years. It's got everything on it. I take it everywhere I go. It's with me all the time. Even I'm online right now, and it's only a hand. It's like an arm's length away from me. It's like I can't be away from it. I think most of us are like that these days, and our phones would definitely do us in, especially the way the cases have been going lately. And it's not easy. You're right. Once you're a creature of habit, Liam, it's hard to break. Interesting, Tony. I wonder how many men use burner phones to contact sex workers so that their wives or girlfriends don't find out. Probably a lot, I would say. I would say just don't use them individually if you end up killing your sex worker. I would say that's a bad move and it's probably going to get you busted. Hey, Aaron, it's good to see you. Sex workers are often a starter target for serial killers. When you add in the dangerous nature of their work, it makes it hard to identify them as victims. Yes, because they're banking on the fact that people aren't going to care they're missing, that they put themselves in that situation, and that perhaps they just went underground or became involved with drugs, and just like that nobody's going to really look for them. They forget that they have families too, okay, and that they're loved. Okay. And you know what? In many instances, it's not such a horrible situation anymore. These were escorts, some of them, who had drivers in professional, relations with people and consistent clients. Okay. They were noticed as missing. But they were banking that the authorities weren't going to care because it was illegal and they were put themselves in the situation and they weren't going to put the time and effort into finding out who killed them once it was discovered. You're right, Aaron. It's sad, but in this case, we just happened to get a police commissioner who did care, who said, no, their voices are not being heard. The family's voices are not being heard, and we're going to have to keep pushing forward. We're not letting this go because, they could have buried this. This is like really old. It could have just went away like so many of them do. The ones from 1996 didn't get solved until the bodies were rediscovered in 2011. Doesn't that tell you something about how you get so inundated with how this happens? And they're not putting the money and the time and the effort. If there's not a lot of evidence there, what can they do? Okay? Like, what can they do? But it did get opened up again, and they are looking at it. I'm grateful for that. But you're right, Aaron. Too often it gets swept under the rug. There are multiple cases of large amounts of women or at risk populations uh, missing right now. Suspected serial killers. Okay. And there's not a lot in it. Besides the little book out or documentary once in a while, nobody's really concentrating on it. And that's not really at the fault of law enforcement. What can they do without leads? What can they do without people helping with the investigation? If you don't come forward and say what you know, how are they going to know? You know? Mm. Well, it's like a catch 22. I think on that, we're going to probably, if an innocent person is wrongly convicted, then a guilty person got away with the crime. True. And that is the injustice of it, isn't it? Isn't it, Tony? Yep. Fish nerd. Didn't Jonas Awful teach us to leave the phones at home when doing sketchy stuff? Yes. Yes. That was an amazing episode of Black Mirror, for those of you who don't know, from season 6. I actually do not have a cell. I live a few miles from service, so because I leave the house a couple of times a month, I'm in a national forest. That's a beautiful area to live. And you know what? I think that's an awesome thing. You are not hindered or attached. You do not have this obsession. And good on you. Mm. Liam, my sex worker done go and stop breathing on me. I need to dump this phone and buy a wood chipper. Buy a wood chipper because the less you leave, the better you are. Yeah. Just wow. All right, guys. I'm getting towards the end of the comments. I think I'm going to wrap it up. Yes, I did, Sean. I did see that. There are as many men and boys missing from the indigenous population in Canada as there were women. I did see that. And they're just not being invested. There's just nothing being discovered. It's very heartbreaking. Yeah. Yep. That's right, Tony. Leaving your phone at home when you're noted to always have it with you is suspicious. Yep. True, Aaron. But, this is why they don't use them anymore. Wood chippers get full DNA. That's right. Every little scrap, every little piece of blood, it's all inside there. And they're impossible to clean out. The hint is to clean everything out and dispose of the wood chippers. Sell it to somebody else that's going to get blamed for the crime. Like, really, just get rid of it. And with that, I became an accomplice by knowing that. Yes, exactly. Okay. Anyway, thank you all for listening. I hope we at least put some of the facts out there for you. There is more in the articles that are listed below in the description, along with identifying the victims, how they were found, all of the bodies that they're talking about loosely when they say the Long Island serial killer. But in specific, we do have the indictment listed below, the redacted version for Rex Heuermann, who was arrested last week for the murders of Melissa Bartholomew and Megan Waterman and Amberlyn Costello, and he's the primary suspect for Maureen Brainerd Barnes. And we're going to keep following it. So again, I would hope that you all would please do the YouTubey things in this last couple of minutes because I forgot to put it up. I'm so bad at that. Well, I hate to do the YouTubey things. So you guys, could you do it for me? Could you like? Could you share? Could you put a comment on the video to help keep these in the algorithm and keep those notifications going out? I see many of you are getting them again, and I'm very happy about that. But I'd like to keep following this. I'm going to talk about it on many different aspects, psychologically, about FBI profiling, about serial killers in general, because that's the interest for me here. Also, the length of the case, how long they have, I want to praise law enforcement for diligently keeping at this tenaciously. They have a little bit to celebrate here that they've got an indictment after 300 subpoenas and all of that information that they did. A year-long investigation one-on-one on this man. Let's hope they dotted their I's and crossed their T's. But like I always say, we're not going to know what gets in to the court until we're in the court. And we're not going to know whether he's truly guilty in the eyes of his peers until we go through that court case. So we've got lots more to talk about in the future. And on that, I'm going to say goodnight. Thank you all. I'll be back during the week. I've got one more true crime episode coming up with some updates on several other cases that we're following. And then on the weekend, of course, we'll be doing, I do believe we're doing Mayhem either Friday or Saturday night. I also, Thursday, will be doing the challenge again with Patrick the Great, J.L. Warren, and our pal Charlie Welsh. And this week, it's on best fight scene. Wish me luck, people. It's hard going against these guys. They are like movie maniacs. They know so much. They know it all. Well, anyway, have a good night, and I'll see you soon. And thank you again for your patience as we do this, and also for keeping it reasonable out there. Let's not get into the rumor, and let's not talk about the man's kindergarten habits or what he wore on his first date or whether he's a good kisser. Let's stay away from all that crap. Let's stay and follow it for what we really like: the crime, the evidence, and the trial that's coming up. Good night, everybody.